Right, guys, can we start the session? Am I audible to all of you? Can you just confirm me whether the voice is loud and clear? Cool. Okay. So let's continue from where we stopped yesterday. So we have done with that section A. Now in this session, we'll talk about section B, the case studies. Okay. So I can see not everyone have joined. There are many who are missing, maybe due to the timing, but should we wait for a few minutes? Right. Okay. So we'll start the session. I'll share the screen and then we'll go with the case studies. Okay. So here are the first case study. Not going to read this, but I hope all of you have gone through that. So you can go through the issues and then these are the four questions that you need to answer. So what are the options available with Vijay and what are the ethical dilemmas faced by Vijay? And you need to critically evaluate and examine each of these options identified by Vijay. And which of the option do you think would be most appropriate for Vijay to adopt and why? So here I have given a simple formula to use that plus plus minus plus plus minus 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 that will give you based on means and goals that will give you four different options which are available, and based on that from the paragraph whatever case study which is given, from there you will be identifying the ethical dilemma, right? And then we will see the rest of it also. So what are the options available with Vijay? Can you type in the chat box? First one, yes, stay in the district and continue leading that disaster relief operation. Stick with the duty. So that's one thing, right? Fair enough. Anything else? Immediately leave for Kerala to perform his mother's last rites. Yes, that's another option. So we are looking for, see, whether it is good or bad, that's not a point of discussion here. When the question is asked about what are the available options, you can bring in everything which is possible. At least four you can mention. And then we will evaluate, we'll consider the ethical dilemma, and then we will look into that. Okay, so that's also fine. Anything else? Yeah, temporarily hand over the charges to senior subordinate. Okay, and then travel home. Cool. So you have taken care of the duty. At the same time, you have taken care of, that personal aspect also. That's fair enough. That's what the plus plus, right? So first one, if you see, there one plus the other is minus. Second one also one plus the other is minus. Third one, that's fair enough. Okay. Now, what's the next one? Yeah, you can look for remote coordination and delegate the operational works like locally, right? Okay, so remote coordination, what do you mean by that, Sanjay? Could be phone, video, like that, or messages. Fine. So these are the options. Anything more you want to add? But four is enough. These are the four that I'm also looking into. Maybe the wordings may change, but otherwise it looks almost the same. That plus, minus, minus, plus, 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 minus, minus. Right? We have not taken minus, minus because that is extremely negative. We are not taking that, neither going home nor taking care of duty. So that there is no need to discuss that option here. Cool. So now, what are the ethical dilemmas faced here? So firstly, duty to public service, that's something which is at most important. Like there's a disaster management situation, so you need to save thousands of life. And at the same time, you have the duty to family. So duty to public service versus duty to family, right? You are the son, you have to perform the last rites of your mother. And that's filial obligations, family obligations, right? So you need to fulfill the family obligation. So there is a conflict between, on one side, the public service, the duty to public service, that means the professional responsibility and personal or emotional responsibility. So this is the ethical dilemma. So you have defined the ethical dilemma also. So the first two part is over. Now you need to critically evaluate the options, the four options that we discussed. You can critically evaluate. So staying in the district, here what you do, you talk about a merit and you talk about a demerit. So you can type in the chat box and based on that I'll pick one merit and one demerit. Staying in first one, staying in the district only, that means taking care of your duty, of course. Yes, upholds the highest standard of duty, and that is ensuring the relief operations and everything is taken care, thousands of lives has been saved. Cool. Okay, now what is the demerit in that case? Family obligations neglected, Yes. Social criticism, yes. Emotional distress, of course, yes. So that's enough. So the first option, you have talked about the merit and demerit. Now let's look at the next one. What was that? Leaving immediately to mother or Kerala, right? So what's the merit there? The positive, like you will be performing the last rites. That means you are fulfilling your personal duty, the filial obligations. Now, what's the demerit? So leadership vacuum in crisis situation. So disaster management is a situation. So there could be a possible mismanagement, and that could affect the public trust, right? Loss of public trust. So that is how you will evaluate the second option. Now, third one, where you are taking care of both, right? So you are delegating the duty to the subordinates, the senior subordinate, and then you are leaving, right? So who have told that? Avinash, yes. So Avinash, can you tell me the merit and demerit of that? So here it is very clear, right? The relief work will continue with supervision, though it's not you, but your supervision is there, right? But your most important or senior subordinate who have the experience will take care of that. And at the same time, Vijay will fulfill the family duty at the same time, right? So that is one thing. What is the demerit in this case? Because we need to critically evaluate. So there is a risk of inefficiency. You can say here also, when you go with this, again, it could be a kind of prioritizing self over society. That thing is also there. So this could be seen as, you are prioritizing more of your personal obligation than the, public service or the societal commitment. Okay, now the fourth one, the three is more important. The fourth one, remote coordination after a short visit, right? So you'll just visit and then you coordinate through phones and messages like that. So what's the merit here? Again, here also you're talking about balancing that family and duty, and at the same time, you're ensuring that there is a continuity in rescue, the relief operations, right? What's the demerit? So again, here also it could be a limited effectiveness at the ground level, or you can say disaster management. This is almost similar. Third one and fourth one is almost similar only. Fine. Okay. So now what is the most appropriate option, right? So we have four questions. We discuss what are the options available. We discuss the ethical dilemma. We discuss the critical evaluation part of each of these options. Now, which one do you think is the most appropriate? So the best option will be the third one, right? You temporarily delegate the charge to the capable senior officer who have some experience and establish a clear standard operating procedure. This is what you need to do for this particular relief work. And also you will travel to perform your last rites where you are fulfilling your personal commitment or the familial obligations also. After fulfilling the personal obligation, you will return promptly to lead the disaster response again. So this approach basically balancing compassion with responsibility. On one side, your mother, your familial obligation and responsibility is also taken care, and it upholds integrity and accountability and also that sensitivity part also. So it again demonstrates the quality of, of public servant who is ethical. So he have taken care of, or he have balanced both in a most appropriate way. So guys, the conclusion could be a civil servant must have to harmonize the personal duties with the public responsibilities. You will come across this kind of dilemmas. So the dilemmas have to be solved by fixing a middle path. So you'll have to harmonize both. So here, when you are adopting a balanced approach, like you are delegating the task to a senior officer, which who's available at that point of time, and you are delegating with accountability, right? So you can honor both of the duty, right? The personal duty to his mother, at the same time, the public service duty also you are fulfilling. So that's what the way you will answer this question. This one is fair enough, the very easy one, short case study also. Let's go to the next one. So here, okay, now you read the story. The story is you can something, you will understand that it's related to ecological facts and everything. So I'll give you some time. You can read if you have not read, but I'm expecting that you have already done the homework. So now the questions that we need to answer, these are three questions that we need to answer. Can deforestation be ethically justified in the pursuit of social welfare objectives like housing for the homeless? So in that case, deforestation is ethically justified or not. Now, remember this one we always talk about, right? Legal versus ethical. Something which is legal may not be ethical at times. Something which is ethical may not be legal at times. But what we consider mostly in genuine, most of the cases is legal and ethical, or not legal and not ethical. So that's what normally highlighted. Again, what are the socio-economic, administrative, and ethical challenges in balancing? In fact, all these you need to write: socio-economic, administrative, and ethical challenges in balancing the environmental conservation and human development. So this dilemma that you need to address by taking into consideration all these angles. And then what substantial administratives or policy interventions can be proposed to ensure that both environmental integrity and human dignity are protected. Cool. So how you're going to answer this question? Can you guys type in the chat box? Can deforestation be ethically justified in terms of the social welfare objectives like housing for homeless? So how will you proceed with? So what you can do here is, rather than simply justifying that, they just asked about can it be justified. So you need to give argument in favor of that, and you also talk about arguments against it, right? So here, first you talk about the arguments in favor, like when you go for it, that addresses the basic human needs like food, clothing, shelter. So that is also aligning with the directive principles of state policy. So you are quoting from the Constitution, you are referring to the DPSP. So that's your first argument in favor of this, justification of deforestation. Now, at the same time, human rights, it also upholds the human right and dignity of the homeless because they are getting homes. At the same time, you can also talk about inclusive development, right? Uplifting the poor and vulnerable. And then we can also talk about it may improve law and order if forests are misused as hideouts. So this is just one more justification that I can give you, because many Naxalites or any such kind of operations, they use forest as hideouts. So deforestation is not a solution for that. But when we talk about arguments in favor, who told this actually? Yeah, fine. Veena. Cool. So, but still, it's fine. That is just for the sake of arguing something you're saying that. But again, let's look at arguments against. Can you just type in the chat box what could be the arguments against? Of course, the first one you talk about is ecology related crisis, loss of this medicinal plants, the fragile ecosystem, destroying biodiversity. That dimensions which you can bring in, that's the easy one, so that everyone will bring in that. And also, we always talk about any questions related to this, we always talk about intergenerational equity. So that basically violate the principle of intergenerational. This is not the time to explain what is that. So I am expecting and I'm assuming that you already know. So let's proceed further. You don't want to explain that here. You just need to write that single word only, and you should be knowing that. Cool. Next one. What are the other arguments against? Yes, a tribal population, the nomadic livelihoods, that will be affected very badly. So at the same time, climate change, you can say it will affect the climate also in that region and overall also. Right? Anything else? So here the question is, there will be short-term welfare, but there are ethical concerns in sacrificing the long-term sustainability. This ecological degradation and other parts we have discussed, and intergenerational equity we can discuss, and then climate change. So short-term welfare measure may be taken care, but long-term sustainability, that's the question here. So that's the first question that you're answering. Now, in conclusion, what you will say? Yeah, the ethical justification, you can say it exists only if housing is like pursued with minimal ecological harm and also with proper or strong safeguard. So that's the balanced conclusion that you give. After discussing the positives and the negatives, arguments in favor and arguments against, you will be giving a balanced one. Now, the next one is socio-economic, administrative, and ethical challenges. So, socio-economic challenge, administrative challenge, and the ethical challenge, in balancing the environmental conservation. Ha, Seema? Seema. പോവാന്ന് പറയാൻ വന്നാണോ? എന്തേ? Okay, sorry guys, I got a guest. When we were talking about, yeah, okay, can you type in the chat box? So first let's start with socio-economic challenges. Give me three. Yes, balancing rights of homeless versus rights of tribal communities. Fair enough. Long-term loss of ecosystem services. Like, what do you mean by that? Rainfall regulation, fertility. Okay. Anything else? Escalation of human wildlife conflict. Yes, socio-economic, it will come. Fine. Cool. What are administrative challenges? Identifying safe land without ecological harm. Fair enough. Implementing rehabilitation and compensation fairly, right? So you cannot only economically settle. You need to, when you talk about rehabilitation, it has to be socially, in culturally, in all ways, you have to rehabilitate. So that's an administrative challenge. And then preventing misuse of forest clearance by vested interest. Okay, fine. Now tell me, what are the ethical challenges? We discussed briefly, but that's the common challenges, not ethical challenges. Utilitarian dilemma, right? The welfare of many poor versus irreversible damage of nature. Yes. Justice. Like that, we already discussed that intergenerational equity part versus immediate human needs. Fine. Okay, next one. Integrity. So ensuring transparency in decision making, avoiding corruption. Okay, that will come in any social welfare situation. Okay, fine, fair enough. Integrity you can add. Okay, so that we have covered this one. Socio-economic, administrative, and ethical challenges. Okay, now what are the substantial alternatives or policy interventions which can be proposed to ensure that both environmental integrity and human dignity are protected? Okay, so environmental integrity, that term you got from the question itself, right? Okay. Okay. So what are the substantial alternative, guys? Can you just type in the chat box? Give me 5, 6 numbers. Use non-forest government land or degraded land for housing schemes. Fair enough. Fine. Okay. So non-forest government land. Okay. Vertical housing model, like multi-story building, low-cost flats instead of the horizontal expansion, so that in the density will be more. That means in a small area you can have more people occupied. Okay, fine. Eco-sensitive zoning, so that means you have to keep core biodiversity intact, and then the peripheral areas is something which you can use. Fair enough. Compensatory afforestation, very good point. So yeah, green infrastructure and compensatory afforestation, right? If you are going with deforestation, do with afforestation as a compensation and have green infrastructure. Okay. Inclusive decision making means, yeah, with local communities you're talking about. Fine. So with local communities, environmental experts, inclusive decision making. Fine. Public-private partnership, where that something which you write everywhere. So that's very okay. But anyway, we already got 5 points. So you can write that as a 6 points. So public-private partnership, so that the cost, because of their expertise and efficiency, the cost of urban, the low cost, right? The efficiency will improve. So the cost will come down. Fine. Okay, so what should be the conclusion? So here we already discussed about the dilemma. That dilemma is all about, the balance between social justice on one side and the environmental issues on the other side. So when we talk about that true ethical governance, that basically requires solutions that protect ecological integrity on one side, that the word that you need to use, because that's what exactly given in the question, environmental integrity. At the same time, you need to fulfill the human dignity. So in conclusion, I want to mention exactly like this: environmental integrity or ecological integrity, at the same time, human dignity, both need to be protected. So we need to go with sustainable housing policies, afforestation or compensatory afforestation, right? So what we need is not just deforestation. We need sustainable housing policy. And as a solutions, we discuss many other things also. So that should be your conclusion, and it should be, taking care of everything, right? So that's how the conclusion. So sustainable housing policy and not just deforestation, right? It must guide the public administration. Not a So why some of you were talking about the case studies were tough? Because of its length. But the theme, if you identify it, is going to be very easy, right? Cool. Next one. So you have enough time to read. Hope you have already gone through, or hope you have already prepared the answers. That's why you're typing it faster also. So guys, can you tell me, okay, what are the questions? Discuss the ethical issues involved, common one. Critically examine the options available to Subhash in that situation. So first we can discuss about the available, it's just like the first question, right? Available situation. So plus, 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 minus, minus, plus, minus, minus, avoid minus, minus, and then you write the others. And critically examine the options. Yes, which of the, it's just the first question. Do you want me to discuss this? Okay, you discuss, that will be better. So what are the, first let me discuss, first tell me what are the options available with Subhash. Comply with the minister's request, fine. Next, refuse to share the confidential details, fine. Next, this pattern we discussed already many times. Seek guidance from higher authorities or vigilance, fine. Then follow the due process. That's it. These are the 4 steps. Now we'll analyze the, see, the critical examine part will come back. So there we'll talk about the merits and demerits. But before that, the first question, let's answer the first question. So I think it's better rather than, making it as 4 division. First, let's answer this one. What are the ethical issues involved in this? Conflict, yeah, type in the chat box. What are the ethical issues? Tell me guys, fast, make it fast. Conflict of interest is there. Yes, minister's nephew stands to gain that, personally from the privileged information. Yes. So there is a conflict of interest. Corruption and nepotism. Yes. Using public office for the private gain. Favoritism over merit. Yes. Breach of confidentiality. Yes. That means disclosure of sensitive government information. Fair enough. What else? Integrity and accountability. Yeah, when you write the points, if you can mention why it is, then it is going to be very easy for me. Otherwise, I'll have to add. So integrity and accountability, like here, the pressure on officer, right? To compromise on professional ethics. What else? Misuse of authority, fine. Yes. So here the minister is coercing the subordinate for personal benefit. So misuse of authority, and then public interest at stake. So it's like laws of transparency, no fair competition and loss of trust in governance. Fine. Now, what next? You need to critically examine the options available with Subhash. Fine. So first option, follow the minister's request, comply with, obediently follow his request. Okay, so what are the positives and negatives, pros and cons, merits and demerits? Because we need to critically evaluate the possibilities. So here, if you follow him, you will maintain a good relationship with minister. Short-term career safety will be there. What's the other side? Cons or the demerit? It's illegal, it's unethical, you know, there could be a penal action if in future some inquiry or something, right? So penal action possibility is there, that risk is there, loss of reputation, and it definitely undermine governance. Fine. You guys are superb. So there is no need for me to discuss anything. If things are like this, let's see next year ethics paper how it goes. Fine. Okay. So next one. Can you? So what was that? Refuse to share confidential details. Yes. So in this case, what's the positive and negative? Yes, upholds law if you do that. Fine. Integrity, confidentiality part. So you're not sharing, you're refusing to share that details, maintain fairness, open competition, fine. What are the negatives? The advantage which you got in the first one will become disadvantage here, right? So there will be a strained relationship with the minister in this case, and there could be, possible political pressure, transfers, all these you can mention. So first two we have done. Next one, seek guidance from higher authorities or vigilance. See guys, do we need to discuss these? Okay, let's quickly go through this. Okay, fine. Tell me the positives. So if you seek guidance from the seniors, firstly, you're protecting yourself, protect himself, and also ensuring that you are using that experience, proper handling of the situation, and that in fact strengthen the transparency also. Fine. Now, what's the demerit in that? It may escalate the tension, right? And then such kind of scenarios, delay in decision making, delay in implementation, so delay in project decisions. That's what you can say. Now, finally, not finally, this is a normal scenario. Follow the due process. So here you will announce the project details only through regular, normal, official, transparent channels. So that's the due process. In this case, what's the positive and negative? That protect the fairness part, that protect accountability part, integrity part. There is no favoritism and fairness. Already we discussed, right? Open competition, all these you can mention. What's the negative? Of course, the second one that we discussed, resistance from your political bosses. Okay, so that's the four options we have critically evaluated. Now, what's the most appropriate option and why? Most appropriate, in this case will be to refuse to share the confidential details, right? Now, why? If you go with strict due process, tell me why you can go with refuse to share confidential. Both are good, following due process of law. So which one we will pick? This one, pick here. Second and fourth is equally okay. Or a combination of 2 and 4, follow due process and refuse to share. In fact, both are complementing each other only, right? Yes or no? You are refusing to share the confidential detail and you're following the due process means announce the project details through official transparent channels. So don't you think both are complementing each other? So the most appropriate course will be to refuse to disclose the confidential information and you follow the due process, adhere to the strict due process of the rules or laws and ensure that the project details are released through official channels so that competitiveness will be there, fairness will be there, transparency will be there, accountability will be there, integrity will be there, open competition will be there, no nepotism, no favoritism. So I would say combination of 2 and 4. Both are complementing each other. That's not contradictory. So here you are balancing what? Confidentiality, fairness, public interest, and protecting Subhash basically from legal consequences also. Okay. So now how he will tell this? He can respectfully convey that also you need to write, right? So guys, this kind of questions you'll get in interview also. So you'll tell that, I'll respectfully convey that, his duty is bound by rules, objectivity, fairness, transparency, ultimately integrity, and that any deviation from this would actually undermine the governance. So still now in interview, they'll ask you questions. In ethics paper, no one is going to ask you a question, but you can anticipate and you can write. If pressure persists, then look for the third one. He can escalate the matter to higher administrative authority or vigilance. Okay. So because there also we have some negatives, right? Delay in project if you go with that option. So in case if still pressure is coming, that is when you can go with it. So guys, let's look at the next one. Rajesh, Group A officer. I hope you have gone through this. Similar ones, similar theme. We are well prepared on this. So it's very easy. What are the options available with Rajesh in the above situation? What's the ethical dilemma involved in this case? Which should be the most appropriate option? But here, they have asked, since they have asked why, we can do the critical analysis part here itself that is supposed to be done. So you'll talk about options, we'll critically evaluate the options, and that's so you can tell what is the best one, right? After critically evaluating each of this. So in fact, it's the combination of the same four. So guys, tell me, type in the chat box, what are the options available with the officer or Rajesh? Cool, comply with both instructions, just follow his instruction and purchase from the suggested vendor. Even in case if it is bypassing the financial rules, just follow the both similar to the previous one. Okay. Second, anything else? Split the expenditure into smaller amounts so that you will avoid a higher sanction, which is a kind of irregular practice. Next one. So first one, if you are complying with the order instruction, second, next option will be you refuse to follow that, or you refuse the order politely and insist on following GFR rules and proper sanction. Fine. Okay, so that's the third. First you obey, second one split the expenditure, third one you refuse the order, and the next one, just like we discussed before, escalate the issue to higher authorities or vigilance if there is more pressure which is coming. Okay, anything else? Four we got. One more if you want. There is one more. Suggest alternative lawful procedures. Yes, like competitive bidding, e-tendering, or seeking sanction from higher authorities. So we have five options here. Tell me, guys. It's very easy. What are the ethical issues involved? Similar to the previous one, conflict of interest, integrity, right? So basically, there is a pressure to favor a particular vendor. So conflict of interest, integrity is also involved. Then you are obeying superior's unlawful order versus adhering to the GFR rules, the financial rules. So that's one side legality, the other side obedience, right? So superior's order you need to obey. So what is that ethical dilemma? Legality versus obedience. Next one, bypassing tender or sanction that undermines fairness, right? So how will you write that? What is the key term? Transparency and accountability part. Okay. Then procurement should be impartial based on merit and price. So that's objectivity. And professional integrity versus careers scrutiny, right? So Rajesh basically fear adverse ACR, which is affecting his promotion because that will be done by the senior. So, career issues, career security is there. At the same time, professional integrity, most importantly here in this context. And then finally, public trust. So there is a misuse of office resources that basically erodes the faith in governance. Okay. Now tell me, what's the most appropriate option and why? Do I need to turn on the mic for any one of you to discuss this? Or, okay, that will do towards the end. That will be better. Otherwise, it will be noisy. So guys, most ethical and substantial course is what? Simple, uphold rules and objectivity, right? So politely refuse to splitting of expenditure, and what you will do, you will process procurement only through the due procedure. Simple. So you can say Rajesh should record his actions transparently, and you can seek formal sanction for expenditure beyond his power. So if anything comes beyond his power, he can seek the formal sanction also and ensure that the procurement through competitive and fair means. Okay. Anything else? So you also need to tell why, right? So that it's not only appropriate action, you also need to tell why. Why? Because if you do this, that is basically safeguarding him from any audits, corruption charges which can come in future, and also personal accountability. But at the same time, you are demonstrating professional integrity. Okay, so there could be a risk in short-term displeasure of the superior. That comes in most of the cases. But if you go with that option that we discussed, that basically protect long-term career reputation and also public interest. So that's why you will go with that option. So, and in conclusion, you can talk about one dimension that in general that civil servants has to follow, right? So the civil servant have to understand and distinguish between lawful and unlawful orders. So just because superior have given an order, that doesn't mean that you have to obey or oblige to that. You need to identify ethical or unethical, legal or illegal, lawful or unlawful. So integrity and adherence to rules, here the GFR rules in this case, right? That take precedence over any blind obedience to any superiors. So in this context, Rajesh basically should act with what? Neutrality, fairness, legality, objectivity, integrity, whatever you want, you can write. So that, he can safeguard governance and his own credibility. Cool. So next one, related to MG and REGA. Yeah, guys, it's lengthy. What are the questions? So take a note of all these. Payments made to fictitious persons, job cards are given without looking into needs of people, mismanagement of funds, and to the extent of siphoning of funds, approved works that never existed, money not dispersed to actual job seekers, muster rolls of the laborers not properly maintained. Okay, so questions. Let's focus on the questions. What is your reaction to the above situation, and how do you restore the proper functioning of MG and RAGA in this regard? Okay. What actions would you initiate to solve various issues listed above? So one by one, you need to, slightly tricky. How would you deal with the above situation? Guys, yes, let's proceed. So what should be the first question? What is your reaction to the above situation? Right? So reaction to the situation and restoring proper functioning. So again, you need to underline what is your reaction, that you need to explain, and how do you restore the proper functioning. So tell me, guys, in the chat box, first you tell me what is your reaction as an administrator in charge. Yes, your first reaction will be serious concern because the irregularities undermine the very objective of MG and RAGA. Okay. This will erode the public trust. Not only public trust, yes, that violate the constitutional right. Which right? Right to work, human dignity. Which constitutional right? Okay, leave it. So then restore the proper functioning. So what you will say here? I would try to, or I would aim to restore credibility and proper functioning by ensuring transparency, accountability, and various corrective measures at all levels. Now comes the tricky one. What actions would you initiate to solve various issues? So take one by one. First one, money not dispersed to actual job seekers. Tell me, guys, money is not disbursed, and also there is a siphoning of funds. So here the solution, immediate financial audit, yes, freeze suspicious accounts, ensure DBT, direct benefit transfer to genuine beneficiaries. Fine, just 2 or 3 is enough. Okay. Now next one, muster rolls not maintained or mismatch in work and payments, right? So muster rolls are not there, mismatch in work and payments. So how will you solve this? First thing that you can do is digitization of records, cross verification with the physical work, right? Whether it is done or not, and geotagging, use of geotagging, Aadhaar enabled attendance. Fine. Next one, payment made to fictitious persons. And this is talking about bogus job cards. Okay. So what you need to do there, verification of job cards with social audit and village Gram Sabha. That's the best way. And then you cancel the fake cards and initiate disciplinary or legal action. Then mismanagement of funds. So what you will do, you will go with strengthening monitoring through electronic fund management system. Yes. So that's one way. And empowering vigilance committees. Fair. Okay, next one. Approved works are not existed. So what you will do here, physical inspection, right? And you can say GPS enabled project monitoring also. And you need to also discuss that accountability may be fixed on concerned officers and contractors. So that will be taken care. So we have given solution to all of these. So we answered A and B. How would you deal with the above situation? So here it's a generic question. So what you need to say is short term, medium term, long term. So type in the chat box first what you do in the short term. Suspend the erring officials. Yes. Initiate inquiry. Yes. Ensure wages are released immediately to genuine workers. Fine. So that's the short term measures. Now type in the chat box medium term. Strengthen grievance redressal. Fine. Conduct periodic audits. Fair enough. Ensure strict adherence to transparency guidelines. Okay. Long term, what you will do? So you will promote citizen participation through social audits, Gram Sabha oversight, and community monitoring for sustained accountability. Okay. So you can write one line for the conclusion also. Like you can say this is a lifeline of rural poor MG and RAG, and ethical administration basically required, and that demands more corrective measures and proper strict accountability and participatory governance, so that the scheme basically fulfills what it is actually aimed for, right? So what is that main promise? Inclusive development and dignity of the poor. So that objective of the scheme will be fulfilled if you go with proper accountability and other aspects. Final, last question. So it's a simple one, right? Cool. What are the options available with Ashok? What are the ethical and legal dilemmas? Okay. Ethical and legal dilemmas. Which options you think most appropriate and why? In the present situation, what are the extra precautionary measures to be taken by the border guarding police in dealing with soldiers in uniform? So guys, tell me what are the options available with Ashok? Type in the chat box fast. Let's finish it faster now. It's the easy one. Allow all civilians to enter immediately without checks. That's the humanitarian response. Deny entry. So if allow entry, deny entry. So you will cite national security and the legal restrictions. Fine. Third option, you will allow everyone, you will stop everyone. What is that in between? Selective entry. So you will allow women, children, aged, injured while holding, soldiers for verification. Okay. Next one, temporary camps at border. Fine. So that you will provide relief until higher authorities decide on this matter. Last one, escalate communication, right? To additional Home Secretary or Ministry of Home Affairs or Army, despite whatever connectivity issues is there. So these are options available. The first four is easy. In fact, 5 is also easy. Second question, what are the ethical dilemma? What are the legal dilemma here? Humanitarian versus security dilemma. On one side, security, the other side, humanitarianism, right? So protecting human life versus safeguarding national security. Second, legal versus moral responsibility. Like there is an adherence to Foreigners Act or immigration rules. At the same time, humanitarian duty. Now, international obligation on one side, national sovereignty on the other side. So when we talk about international obligation like refugee protection, human rights, etc. Then equity and justice, that's another dimension. So you need to ensure genuine refugees are not denied, but at the same time, prevent the militant infiltration. So finally, accountability, you can mention. If you want to be more precise, administrative accountability, that making decision without immediate clearance from higher authority. So that's the legal and ethical issues faced. Okay, now what's the most appropriate action? I think the third one that we discussed, right? Set up temporary camps at border. So the most balanced will be you set up a temporary camps at the border and provide that immediate humanitarian aid like water, food, the required medical care, shelter, especially to women, children, and injured. So that means the first step that you will do. And then you can isolate and verify the military personnel. That's something which you can do. And also the strong women or able-bodied men to prevent infiltration. Then after that, you will escalate the situation promptly to higher authorities, right? So that you will get the official clearance also. Now, why? That also you need to answer, right? So you set the course of action. Now, why? Ensures human dignity, ensuring national security. So that was the major dilemma. And also it's aligning with ethical and the legal principles. There is nothing illegal. There is nothing unethical also. You are taking care of humanitarian aids and, giving water, food, shelter, everything which is required for, especially the vulnerables. So both dimension has been taken care. Now there is one more dimension here, the extra precautionary measures by border police, right? So type in the chat box. Verification of identity of soldiers in uniform, yes. Disarm suspected infiltrators, yes. Keep them under surveillance, fine. Maintain cordoned separate enclosures for potential combatants versus civilians, okay, fine. Non-lethal crowd control measures if needed, okay. Document and report all developments for accountability, okay. So these are whatever it is coming to your mind at that point of time. We cannot study and go write all these things, but the themes we identified, we have the general solution. So basically here, this guy Ashok have to balance the humanitarian concern with national security imperatives. That's ultimately what you need to write. So it has to be a proper law abiding and a kind of compassionate response. That's what you are looking for. So you can write a measured, law-abiding, and compassionate response that will ensure protection of vulnerable citizens or not citizens, civilians. At the same time, you are preventing the infiltration risk also. And that's reflecting the role of an ethical and responsible administrator. So guys, slightly lengthy and it was one-sided discussion. So I got tired. So whatever questions you have, now I'll unmute one by one. You can just raise your hands. So let me stop the recording and then we will have the discussion. I'll be here for 15 minutes more. Cool. So where is this? Yes.